Most men spend decades learning how to manage the outside world. We learn how to build careers, we learn how to solve problems, we learn how to perform under peer pressure. We learn how to make money, we learn how to survive. But almost nobody teaches men how the inside world actually works. And because of that, many men spend years fighting battles they don't understand. Have you ever found yourself in a heated conversation with your partner? Maybe your manager who questioned your work. Maybe your child who said something that caught you off guard. Maybe someone challenged your authority. Something happened, you felt something rise inside you fast. Probably it could be your dad or mom. Then one of these two things happened. You exploded or you completely shut down. You said something you regretted or you withdraw behind a wall of silence. Then later, when you were alone, you asked yourself, why do I keep doing that? Why can't I handle this differently? Most men think the answer is weakness. Most men think something is wrong with them. The truth is quite different. It's not a character flaw. It's not weakness. It's a brain that was never taught how it works, and a set of beliefs about manhood that made learning even harder. Today, that changes because self awareness is not soft. Self awareness is the foundation of every kind of performance that actually matters, be it in relationships, be it in leadership, be it in business or in fatherhood and in life. Let's begin. So, how your brain actually works is something which we'll explore. Every man has three major system operatings working inside them. They work together. They operate at very different speeds. The first is the survival brain. The second is the alarm brain. The third is the wise brain. Let's understand each one of them. The survival brain is your brain system. It controls breathing, heart rate, sleep cycles, basic survival functions, and people call it the parasympathetic nervous system. You don't have to think about any of those things. It runs automatically. It kept your ancestors alive and it is still working beneath every thought, feeling, and decision you make. And the alarm brain is your amygdala. Think of it as a threat detection system that never sleeps. Most men think threats means physical danger. Not true at all. So your alarm brain reacts to criticism, disrespect, rejection, being ignored, losing status, embarrassment, or failure. Anything it interprets as danger, the alarm brain is incredibly fast. In many situations, it activates before you consciously understand what happened. This is why sometimes you react before you think. And finally, the wise brain. This is the prefrontal cortex. This part of the brain helps you pause, reflect, and plan. It helps you evaluate consequences, choose your response. Probably this is the part which is responsible for leadership, character, discipline, and wisdom. The challenge is quite simple. The wise brain is lower than the alarm brain. By the time your wise brain fully arrives, your alarm brain may already have created that reaction. Probably the explosion, the argument, the shutdown, the regret. This is why understanding timing matters. Research shows that after a trigger occurs, the alarm system can activate in as little as 100 to 300 milliseconds. The thinking brain starts evaluating around 300 to 600 milliseconds later. And something extraordinary happens and it appears a small window, roughly in 2 seconds, a pause window, a moment where a wise response becomes possible. That gap is trainable. That gap is where leadership lives. That gap is where transformation begins. What happens inside your body during an alarm response? When the alarm brain activates, your body changes immediately. Your heart rate increases, blood rushes to your muscles, your chest tightens, your pulse becomes stronger. Your muscles brace for action, your jaw clenches, your fists tighten, your shoulders rise. Your breathing becomes faster and shallower. You may even hold your breath without noticing. Your thinking narrows. Reasoning becomes harder. Words become harder to access. Everything becomes black and white. Stress hormones flood the body. Adrenaline rises. Cortisol rises. Heart spreads and probably your chest becomes tighter. You become restless. You feel an urge to attack or escape, or probably shut down. Many men mistake this for reality. It isn't reality at all. It's biology. And once you understand this biology, you can learn to work with it. Because most men have trained to act fast. Fast action means it can be valuable. But when action comes from the alarm brain instead of the wise, it creates a cost in relationships, a cost in leaderships, a cost in the man you're trying to become. All this happens in split seconds. So the rules you were given, I never question. So by the time most men reach adolescence, They've already absorbed hundreds of invisible rules. These rules come from fathers, coaches, teachers, friends, probably the culture, our ancestors, or probably the movies and the silence. These rules were rarely chosen consciously. They become background programming. They still drive actions or reactions today. Many men grew up hearing messages like, man up, men don't cry, or don't cry, just be strong. Over time, the brain begins to create the meaning. It concludes, this is what being a man means. Then a core belief format occurs and it forms. Needing help means weakness. The belief creates behavior. The behavior reinforces the belief, and the cycle repeats. For years, sometimes it might be decades too. Four common beliefs appear repeatedly. I should handle everything myself. This creates isolation, over-functioning, refusal to accept self. So showing emotion means losing control. This creates emotional shutdown, probably numbness, anger as a substitute for vulnerability. And my worth is what I produce. This creates overwork, shame, and inability to reset or probably rest. And the achievement stops. Anger is only acceptable emotion because fear becomes anger, grief becomes anger, loneliness becomes anger, shame becomes anger. Eventually, a man loses access to his emotional vocabulary. He only knows irritation and rage. And these are not personal failures, they are learned patterns. And anything learned can be unlearned. So there are four layers of your inner world. Most men live only on the surface, but your inner world has four layers. Understanding them changes everything. Layer 1 is your thoughts. Layer 2 is your memories. Layer 3 is identity stories. Layer 4 is the watcher. So thoughts, your mind constantly produces commentary, plans, judgments, predictions, replays. Believe me, you are not your thoughts. Thoughts are events happening inside your mind. The problem is that most men become fused with them. Instead of observing thoughts, they become controlled by them. The skill is learning to notice thoughts and without obeying them. And layer 2, memories. The emotional memory comes from whatever the stories or experiences which you had. A tone of voice, a look, a phrase, a situation, something which happens probably today. Your brain recognizes a pattern from 20 years ago. Suddenly emotions flood your system before you even understand why. Many reactions are not about the present, they're about the past, revisiting the present. So the identity stories, number 3, these stories begin with I am not, I always, I never. And examples like I'm not the type of man who asks for help. I've always been this way. Real men don't struggle. I fail, therefore I am failure. These stories feel like facts, but they're not facts. They are stories. And stories can be rewritten. And layer 4, the watcher, is the most important layer. The watcher is the part of the awareness behind the emotions, the awareness behind the stories. And when you catch yourself thinking, I'm getting angry, I'm shutting down, I'm about to say something I'll regret, that is the watcher. Every skill you build starts here because you cannot change what you cannot see. And neuroplasticity, the science of change for centuries. For centuries, people believed the brain became fixed in adulthood. Modern neuroscience proved otherwise. The brain changes throughout life. A principle known as Hebb's rule explains it perfectly. Neurons that fire together wire together. Before training, whatever the trigger, whatever the alarm, whatever the reaction or the regret, and after training, whatever the trigger, whatever the awareness, whatever the pause, whatever the choices which you make, and the response. The kind of pathway changes. The brain changes, the man changes. Every time you pause before reacting, you strengthen a new pathway. Every time you name an emotion instead of suppressing it, you strengthen a new pathway. Every time you challenge an old belief, you strengthen a new pathway. And repetition is not optional. Repetition is the mechanism. This is how transformation happens. Not overnight, not through motivation, just through practice, through awareness, through repetition. And the pause is the most important thing. Everything in this always comes back with the skill. Most men are trained to move fast, be it fast decisions, fast reactions, and fast recovery. But the moments that define character are rarely fast. They happen in the pause, The 2-second window between stimulus and response. The pause has 4 steps. Number 1, notice the body signal, the jaw, the chest, the shoulders, the heat, the tension, the urge. And step 2, stop. Do not speak. Do not type. Do not react. Probably 3 seconds of pause. And step 3, take 1 controlled breath. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. This activates the nervous system's calming response. The heart rate drops, cortisol decreases, the wise brain returns. In step 4, ask, what is actually being asked of me here? What response would the man I want to become give? Then act from that answer, not from the alarm. So here is the final message. The alarm brain fires before the thinking brain. That is biology. It's not weakness. Core beliefs shape reactions. They can be rewritten. Thoughts are not identity. Memories are not destiny. Stories are not facts. The watcher can observe all of them. The brain changes through deliberate practice. And the man you want to become is built one pause at a time, not in huge moments, not in perfect conditions, not in ordinary moments, in difficult conversations, in frustrating situations. In those 2 seconds between trigger and response, that is where the leadership lives. That is where the freedom begins. That is where the future version of you is created. So know yourself, lead yourself, and become the man you choose to be. I'll talk to you soon.